victory at tiny Villers-Bretonneux gives Monash is a rare opportunity. This is the first point where the German advance has been stopped. The diggers are the toast of Europe. Can this brief glory buy Monash the chance to test the thinking of so many Allied generals about a new kind of war?
The true role of infantry is not to wither away under merciless machine gun fire, but, on the contrary, to advance under the maximum possible protection of the maximum possible array of mechanical resources.
Monash is promoted to command the new Australian Army Corps and honoured with a new headquarters, Chateau de Breton. He packs it with hundreds of staff working day and night. The master engineer takes apart the technology that has made the battlefield so deadly for his men and pieces it back together in a new way around them. Could the weapon that has defined the defensive stalemate of this war, the machine gun, be mobilized for attack? How could air power with artillery be coordinated in support? And what are the technologies so many have written off as a dud? What is the real potential of the tank? All the pieces move through the general's brain, synchronized into a giant clockworks of war. Monash puts to his commander, General Haig, a proposal to take the nearby town of Hamel.
It was high time that some commanders on our side of no man's land should begin to think offensively and cease to look over their shoulders.
Haig approves Monash's plan. The attack is set for July 4. But just before it is due to launch, a new enemy from Australia threatens to derail Monash's career. The machinery of minute planning suddenly stops as the Australian Prime Minister, Billy Hughes, walks into Baton. So what is it that the Prime Minister has come here to do then?
He's come really to sack him. He's come to Hamel to sack him. And it's just before, it's 2 days before the Battle of Hamel as planned.
War correspondents Keith Murdoch and Monash's old critic Charles Bean have filled Billy Hughes' ears with poison against him. What have they been saying to him?
They've been saying that he hasn't got support from all the key generals under him, that Monash had pushed himself up for this position. They're saying he's worming his way in here and he's trying to get this position, he's done that.
All the jealous bigotry Monash has so carefully sidestepped finally explodes into the open. He records in withering detail how he now turns and confronts his own Prime Minister.
I am bound to tell you, quite frankly, that my removal from the command of this corps would be in the highest degree distasteful to me, and that I would regard any such removal as a degradation and a humiliation. I will not voluntarily forego this command.
Monash has got a big bloke. He's nearly 5'11" compared to Hughes' 5'5". The whole mystique of him in his military uniform suddenly takes on another meaning for Hughes.
And Hughes is very much out of his place.
Absolutely out of his place. Then the light goes on for Monash and he thinks, I'll let him in on the secret plans for 2 days' time.
The detail and planning of the last sleepless weeks are laid out for the PM.
There's the Air Force, the artillery, the soldiers. They're all combining at this point. They're all thinking about what they're going to do. Hughes goes to all the generals after this meeting with Monash's generals, and said, do you want this bloke or not? To a man. They say, of course we do, yes. So Murdoch and Bean have lied to him.
Fucking beautiful.
The press cameras now captured the Australian PM with John Monash. His command is beyond contest.
At long last, the Australian nation has achieved its ambition of having its own Commander-in-Chief, a native-born Australian.
Now, to take Hamel. And what a view!
Fantastic view. In actual fact, if you look straight through there, you'll see Hamel.
To win Hamel, Monash has to take not just the town, but the high ground behind it. The Wurzburg. Monash's first moves come a week before the assault. Gas attacks, obvious and repeated. He's not targeting his enemy, he's training them.
Monash's plan here is starting to shape and condition the enemy to routinely, when they see the gas and the smoke, put on their gas masks.
I've had modern gas masks on in Iraq, and I know just how incredibly confining those things are.
Absolutely. It's akin to tying your enemy's arms behind his back so you go and win the fight with an unfair advantage. All right, Peter, we're standing on the starting line. For the soldiers and commanders here, this is a very, very busy battle space, all under the nose of the Germans. They don't know what's going on. We're coming to 0 hour, heart rate's going.
You're sounding almost excited about it.
I am excited. You can imagine, you're going into the heat of battle, and it's all worked on the clock. So the last thing they would have done on their orders was synchronise their watches. On the tick of the clock, there was one unholy roar. Every gun starts at the same moment. Gradually this wall of fire creeps forward. Then the tanks waddle out in a rough sort of formation. And following them is the infantry. 3:14, we're up. Starting to move forward, and you can feel, mixed in with the rumble of the artillery hitting the ground, the vibrations, is the rumble of these tanks moving through on the left and right of us.
The Germans have no warning. It's the first use of these tanks in the dark, and the noise is covered from high above.
He actually used really old, noisy aircraft to drown out the noise of those squeaky tanks.
Just because of the noise.
That's fantastic. He's dulling the senses of the enemy with the gas masks on their faces. They can't see clearly, and now their sense of hearing has also been dulled.
It's a fucking
They
thing.
start to move forward to Hamel, and they start to see that this thing's working. This plan is actually coming together. The boss knows what he's doing. I'm driving.
There is no fellow feeling for the Germans in Monash's plan. This is an enemy to be crushed.
Give 'em hell was the order. The Huns were shot down in bunches like scared rabbits. The silly blighters thought that they could rush the tank like a fort. We reached the enemy trenches and never saw men so frightened. A few chaps stayed behind and tried to stop us with their machine guns. But we smashed them to bits. It was slaughter. And they would not have seen this sort of thing before. This would have been the first time this big metal beast is coming out of the mist at them. Their spirit's getting crushed. And this is where we see Germans being taken prisoner, still with their gas masks on, lying in the bottom of their pits, not firing weapons because they're overwhelmed. So at 3:28, the soldiers are now starting to get into the village of Hamel. You can imagine how much ammunition usage that they're going through.
This is the point at which so many other attacks have failed.
This is the first time that we see ammunition resupply to the troops on the ground here by air. Now they came up with an ingenious parachute mechanism which enabled the ammunition to be dropped within about a 100-metre radius of its marker. So Peter was standing on the Wolfsburg, and this is what Monash was trying to achieve. Monash had planned it to occur in 90 minutes. It actually took 93 minutes.
That sounds as perfect a planning as you could possibly get.
That's a perfect day on the battlefield.
I wonder if it's possible for you to realize the scope and scale and dynamic splendor of a modern battle. No mere words can convey any idea of it, or of the complexity of the organization required to coordinate the action of the 20,000 people and all their different weapons.
This is one small hill along a vast front. How does it change things?
This wasn't the end game. This was a chess move to secure the greater prize down the track.
So we're still working towards a checkmate.
Absolutely. The real game changer here is the synchronicity that we're achieving between air, artillery, tanks and infantry. for a very small cost in human life. It creates the blueprint for the next phase of the campaign and creates the blueprint for how we conduct operations today.
It's a triumph of rational planning, but Monash knows its real significance is all emotion.
The psychological effect of the Battle of Hamel was electric and startling.
The French Prime Minister Clemenceau tells his people, "I have seen the Australians. I have looked into their eyes. I know that they, men who have fought great battles in the cause of freedom, will fight on alongside us till the freedom for which we are fighting is guaranteed for us and our children."